Hey there, everyone. Here we are with another D Square Talks. Boom, there I am. D Square with you again. Want to talk about the season finale, the series finale of Game of Thrones. I always am tempted to do a live stream like right after the show ends to talk about it and give it my initial thoughts, but I refrain. And the reason I do so is, well, A, Sunday night, it's at that point, it's really time for me to get to bed, and so I get to work. But B, is I like to give people a chance to see it. I know people that are fans of the show but don't get to tune in on Sunday nights, so they get to view it on the DVR or on demand, Monday nights, things like that. But I also like to see what everybody is upset about, because I knew that this being a beloved TV series, I've been alive long enough to know that there's always, some detractors when it comes to a TV show, how the series ends, things of that nature. So I know that always happens. Thank you, Marcus, by the way. Thank you very much for checking in there on the chat. Great to see you here tonight. Let me know if you got any questions. So as expected, a lot of people were not happy with this ending, and I certainly knew that was going to happen because people really didn't like Daenerys being the bad guy. And I know that Game of Thrones is not exactly happy ending land. So certainly, although I was pretty sure Daenerys was going to die because she's the final villain and somebody would certainly take her out, I said, maybe not. Maybe this will go in a whole nother different direction. But it didn't. She did end up being defeated. And so finally, my boy, Jon Snow, after being completely useless most of this season, he did the job that needed to be done. I like this episode because I didn't go into it with any real expectations. I had predictions. I thought, and I talked about this last stream, I thought Jaime Lannister would end up being Azor Ahai and killing Cersei. That didn't happen. Seeing Jon being useless and making really stupid decisions in this season, I really didn't think that he would end up really doing anything. So I predicted that Arya Stark would be the one that takes out Daenerys, but that is not the case. I'm just gonna real quick pause here. I'll be right back with you. All right, back with you. Didn't want anyone to see me adjusting stuff, but they will anyway. So there we go. Anywho, so I really enjoyed this last season. I liked the way things went down. Like I've said in other streams, I didn't exactly agree with the lack of strategy that some of the characters showed, but I think overall the story was wrapped up well. It really kind of threw me a loop because I really didn't think that this was going to be a happy ending, and I think overall it was. I understand some people's complaints, and so let me talk about them real quick. So this season and the season before was rushed. They were. That was a legitimate complaint. Things could have been fleshed out more. More time could have been taken to develop. It would have been nice to have like a whole season of Daenerys being the villain instead of just the final episode. And I don't quite understand why they felt they had to rush it, because HBO, told the writers like, hey, let's do 10 seasons. let's do 10 episodes a season. And the writers said no. We want to wrap it up. We want to move on to other projects. They're going to be doing the new Star Wars trilogy. Yeah. So let's see how that turns out. I don't hate these guys as writers, but I do have to lose a little bit of respect for them. Here you have this wildly popular television show that even normies watch. And I don't mean to insult anybody, but normie is what us nerds call everyone that just kind of hops on the bandwagon. Me, I'm a 30 plus year Dungeons and Dragons player. Read the Lord of the Rings books, obviously enjoy those movies, played a lot of RPGs as a kid, so I've been dealing with these high fantasy elements for years. Most of the people that watch Game of Thrones, I guess I won't say most, but let's say at least half, this is their first foray into any sort of fantasy realm. So they're normies. We have them in the comic book world too. Normies, the people that have, dedicated to the MCU, feel the need to comment and critique, yet have never read a comic book in their life. That's a normie. I don't mean to use it in a disparaging way. I don't. So I do apologize if you're offended by that. But speaking of normies, I think that a lot of their perceptions are skewed. Because here we have Game of Thrones, and it's obvious that a lot of people really like that soap opera, intrigue, backstabbing, heavy dialogue, and things of that nature. And in truth, the last season, other than the first two episodes, but after the first two episodes, we've really just got a lot of action. Not a whole lot of time for conversations. But again, I think that this is something that a normie can't appreciate, and that's the fact that how are you going to complain about a show that has awesome looking dragons in it? I mean, that's cool. This show has so much cool stuff in it that to me, the intrigue, the soap opera part of it, the backstabbing, that's just secondary. I don't really favor the type of worlds that have no justice. And, Westeros and Essos and the Game of Thrones universe in general, there's not a whole lot of justice, unfortunately. So I think people also have a negative view of this season and the end of the series because, some people got off lightly. So but let's just move through the episode here. So it starts off with Tyrion and Jon Snow and others walking through King's Landing, seeing all the destruction, seeing the burnt bodies. There was even that guy that was walking around like a zombie, and they finally show the back of him, and it's all burnt off. Mark's got a comment here. Agreed, but they focus too much on the action to attract more viewers, just my opinion. No, I absolutely understand that. I absolutely understand that point of view. It's not how the show started. The show, the first 4 or 5 season is all dialogue, is all this soap opera, so I get it. I will tell you that, I didn't start off with being a Game of Thrones fan season 1. I probably jumped off somewhere around season 4, season 5. And I will tell you that I'm just one of those people that I liked the high fantasy stuff. I liked the dragons, the White Walkers, the Whites. So I loved those action pieces. And although they're initially not what attracted me to this series, it gave me something to look forward to. So, as Marcus points out in the chat there, he's obviously one of those fans that really likes the dialogue, wasn't really wanting a full season of, CGI and action-packed scenes, and I definitely get that. I personally found it exciting, so I'm going to be the other side of that coin. So anywho, getting back to the kind of the breakdown of the episode, so they've seen kind of the destruction that's going on. Jon Snow and Davos walks past Grey Worm as he's about to execute Lannister soldiers. they kind of beef there, but Jon Snow eventually ends up letting it go. And as he's walking away, we see that Grey Worm slits the throat of one of the Lannister soldiers that they've captured. And obviously they're going to go ahead and execute, all the soldiers that are there. And Jon, of course, goes to address Daenerys. Of course, he goes to Daenerys, and apparently Grey Worm's got some sort of teleportation powers, because boom, he's right there to meet Jon. And Daenerys really doesn't regard Jon that much, so he just kind of stands behind her as she gives her Hitler speech. And I'm sure this is where it really starts to sink in. Tyrion, he takes his pin off. He's not going to be the Hand anymore. Daenerys orders him to be arrested. Then during this Hitler speech, she's basically talking how she's going to keep doing this. She's going to keep doing this conquest. She's going to, make sure everybody's free. It's like, straight from a Hitler speech almost. So, that definitely sets it up for like, okay, she's got no chill. We've got to deal with this. We end up, and this was way earlier in the episode than I thought, but so then we end up coming to the scene that I was talking about where my favorite character, Jon Snow, actually came through in the clutch. So he has a conversation with Daenerys, and they're going back and forth, and you can tell that Jon Snow is just searching for a reason. He's defended her. He defended her from Tyrion, and hey, that's my queen. It's easy for you to say when you're not in the battle. He's not going as far as to justify her actions, but she's definitely defending them. But you can tell that he's wanting to hear some things from Daenerys that's going to reinforce his idea of she had no choice, she had to do this. But, it's pretty much as soon as she was saying, hey, those other people don't get to choose, I'm pretty sure that's where Jon decided, okay, she gots to go. And this was rather unexpected. I didn't think he'd have the guts to do it. He tells her, you're going to be my queen forever. And I was thinking like, are you serious? Like, are you basically joining the Empire right now, Jon Snow? But, as they're kissing, you kind of see his arm crank back and then, shivved her right in the heart. She dies. Blood comes out of her nose and mouth for whatever reason. Don't quite understand that, other than Game of Thrones like to be as gruesome as it possibly can. And then Drogon comes, and I'm like, oh, okay. How's this going to go? Because Jon is a Targaryen, so I had some theories here. I don't think Jon can be burned. They've never explored that part of his Targaryen blood, but, he may not be able to be burned. Number 2, even if he's able to be burned, he is the head Targaryen, so there is absolutely the possibility that Drogon will listen to him, even if he kills Daenerys. So Drogon comes in the scene, sees his mother dead. They kind of have this scene where he's, shoving at her with his nose, trying to get her to move. Finally realizes she's dead. Looks like he's going to straight kill Jon. And even if Jon was immune to fire, he could still tear him up. But Drogon decides to take it out on the Iron Throne and starts to melt it. So here's another point of contention that I'm going to have with a lot of the complaints about this episode. So one of the complaints is, what is Drogon doing? He's just a dragon. He's not that smart. How does he know to do that? To that I say, okay, you're obviously a normie. Which, I'm not trying to be derogatory. But if you play D&D, or heck, even read The Hobbit, or saw the Hobbit movies, you should know dragons are some of the smartest motherfuckers out there. Excuse my French. But that's just the truth. There's more intelligent dragons than there are, non-intelligent dragons. Now, of course, we can always argue that the dragons in Game of Thrones are more, like wyverns. But whatever, they're dragons. For the show purposes, they're dragons. So Marcus giving me some applause there. Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's just something that maybe a lot of people don't know. So again, I'm not trying to be derogatory, but I do want to inform you that it is not a strange thing for a dragon to be smart. In fact, most of the time, they are smarter than everybody they encounter. So it is completely within the realm of possibility that Drogon knows exactly what's going on and is just like, fuck this throne. Daenerys is dead. My two brother dragons are dead because of this thing. So let me melt it off. And then, he flies away, which I didn't expect. I actually did expect that if he didn't kill Jon, like I almost thought there was a point there where he kind of got down low enough. I think it was after he like popped out of the snow. It kind of looked like he was telling Jon to ride him. But he just kind of rides off, and there's lots of theories. He goes back to the ruins of Valyria and whatnot. So that scene happens, and then we basically cut to all the new leaders of Westeros meeting with Grey Worm to decide the fate of the realm, to negotiate Jon Snow, being released. And, that does happen. But, so basically, and this is the next really big point of contention for people, and that's the fact that during this new council of leaders, they have to pick a king. And they don't pick Jon Snow, which is kind of what I thought would have happened, but obviously if he's imprisoned by Grey Worm, which is now apparently a legitimate leader, which, I guess he is. He's got thousands of soldiers and holding King's Landing captive, so I guess at that point you do have to give him some power there. But nonetheless, they decide, not they decide, but so Tyrion is brought out. So he was jailed, so he's brought out. This is kind of his, treason trial, and somehow he parlays it into him picking the new king of Westeros and becoming the Hand. So they pick, or Tyrion convinces everybody that stories are the most powerful thing in the world. So who better to pick for a king than Bran the Broken, the three-eyed raven, the guy that can look into the past, the guy that, will be able to tell our story. Let him be king. People think it came out of nowhere. People don't agree with it. Did it come out of nowhere? It wasn't what I thought was possible, but it didn't exactly come out of nowhere. Because now that I think about the series as a whole, this TV show followed Sansa, Arya, Jon Snow, and Bran. Like, they basically followed the Stark children. And so it makes total sense that now at the end of the show, Bran the Broken would be the king of the Six Kingdoms because, Sansa's like, hey, I love you and all, and it's, great. I'm sure you're going to make a good king, but, the people in the North, we fought too hard. We're never going to accept another king. We want to be independent. And he grants it. So it's not 7 kingdoms anymore. It is now 6, with the North completely independent. And like I said, this was like Tyrion's treason trial. So not only does he basically pick the next king, he becomes the king's hand. As much as he doesn't want to be, he becomes the king's hand. Bran is like, listen, this is, you effed up a lot of things in this world, so you're going to spend the rest of your days fixing them one by one. Which is appropriate. And then, so, the next thing that maybe people have a problem with, I don't, again, is that Jon Snow is basically exiled to the Night's Watch again. And that is what appeases Grey Worm, is that Jon Snow gets to keep his life, but he has to go back to the Night Watch. So, and from what I understand, he's the Lord Commander of the Night Watch. So he was the 998th Lord Commander and the 1000th Lord Commander, well, which is funny. So we'll come back to that, because that's another point of contention with peoples. They don't like the fate of Jon Snow. I do, and I'll explain why here in a minute. So Bran is king, Tyrion is the hand, and they put together this new small council, which was pretty cool. Bronn was the master of coin. Doesn't make sense, whatever. But, he's the ruler of Highgarden now, and now he's on the small council as the keeper of coin. Sam is now the new Grand Maester, and people are questioning why he's the new Grand Maester. Okay, let's think about this. He's the only person to cure somebody of grayscale. Okay, so there's one thing. He is also the one that discovered the secret of Jon Snow's heritage, which, by the way, another point of contention, his heritage didn't seem to matter. Okay, I'm not mad at that. I mean, I'm surprised by that, but I'm not mad at it. I really don't think it's something you should be mad about. So he found that out. He also researched the dragon glass and let everybody know about its effects. He's killed a White Walker before. So I am not questioning at all why Sam is a Grand Maester. You saw when he was in the Citadel, he's the most forward-thinking one of the bunch. Every other one of those guys is more interested in carving up dead people, weighing bowel movements, things that really aren't going to add anything to the history or knowledge of Westeros. So I absolutely understand him being the Grand Maester and think he is most deserving. I don't get where people are questioning that at all. Okay, so I know, so we've got Sam, we've got Bronn, and I'm like missing somebody else who was, because they were going back and forth. Maybe it'll come to me, but, they're missing a couple of, Master of Law, Master of War, Master of Whisperers, we'll fill those positions later. So you got your new small council set up, and I thought it was cool. I guess the only thing I'll agree to here is, judging by their bickering, I don't know if the will's broken. So Marcus says, wasn't the Citadel... Yes, Davos and Brienne of Tarth, correct. Yes, they were the other parts of the small council. Thank you, Marcus. And Marcus asked, wasn't the Citadel located in King's Landing? Would that make most of the higher maesters dead? No, it is not in King's Landing. It's actually kind of like northwestish. So it is not part of the Citadel. So yeah, they're all still there. They know that whole gag, and they're in their ilk. They're still there. They're obviously something happened though, because Sam's a Grand Maester. So Bran must have, I don't know, sent a raven that said, "Hey, I'll recognize Sam." So that's cool. Kind of tells you how Westeros is going to be run from this day forward, which is cool. So, Jon Snow, and this was a surprise to me too, but I do understand it, is basically exiled to the Wall, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch yet again. I like that. I'll tell you why. Jon wanted to be in the Night Watch in the beginning of the series. Now, maybe after being killed by them, his attitude changed a little bit, but in the beginning seasons, he voluntarily wanted to be the Night Watch. He likes the North. He likes the wildlings. Him and Tormund got back together again. Him and Ghost are back together again, which is something that a lot of people were calling for. I don't understand why there is so much love for that CGI dog, but nonetheless, or direwolf, whatever you want to say it as. But, they reunited yet again. So I think that is a fitting end for Jon. Because let's face it, Grey Worm, he isn't, he's going to go back to Essos. So really, Jon can do whatever he wants. He's the Lord Commander. He can go down to Winterfell. He can move wherever he wants, and nobody's going to say anything. Nobody's going to rat him out. I like that Sansa is the Queen of the North. That's cool. She's the one that stood up for them and gained their independence, so I think that was very fitting. Arya is going to sail to find what is west of Westeros. Side note, just saw on my Twitter feed not too long ago that it has been confirmed there will be no spin-off starring Arya Stark and her adventures on her ship. So any of you that were hoping for that, I'm sorry to let you down, but it's already been squashed. Another cool scene that I did like was Brienne, obviously part of the small council, and she is the King's Guard, along with Podrick, who is also seemed to have been knighted, but his job is carting Bran around. But, I mean, hey, somebody's got to do it, so it makes sense to me. We do see a really cool scene with her, though. She's got that big book of, like, the tales of all the knights. And so she finishes Jaime Lannister's, which was nice. I just didn't understand why she closed the book with wet ink, but what are you going to do? It's a TV show. There was a water bottle in one of the scenes. I mean, so obviously we're not perfect here. But the moral of the story is this made sense to me. The ending made sense to me, and it was, much to my happy surprise, it was a happy ending. I mean, the death of Daenerys is tragic, especially if you are one of the people that have been rooting for her. I can absolutely understand you being upset with her death. But I think that her turn to the Mad Queen, or whatever you want to call her, I think that was all foreshadowed pretty well all throughout the series. So, so I don't know what people's vitriol about that is, other than that was their character, and their character ended up being the bad guy. So overall, I thought season 8 and the series finale here were great. They didn't address everything, I guess, that everybody would have liked them, but I did feel that it was a good end to the series. I felt that it was a happy ending, which again, I was really surprised with and happy for, because I just, again, the fact that a world is ruthless and there's no justice, that's not exactly what attracts me to a universe or world. So just the fact that it did have a happy ending was really cool. So just to, anyone there in the chat, I mean, I do say I got a couple of viewers here. I mean, does anybody have any retorts? I mean, or do you agree with me here? Did you enjoy this last season, and did you enjoy the last episode, or are you part of this huge army of people? I've been listening to podcasts all day that are just up in arms. They're signing things to try and get a new season 8 done, which is ridiculous. I don't know why that's a trend, that every time something comes out that somebody doesn't like, they petition it to be redone. It's just really not how the world works most of the time, so good luck with that. How do you feel about the writers of Game of Thrones now being the writers for Star Wars? Does that worry you? Do you think you're going to enjoy that? I think they did a good job, other than I just don't understand the whole, no, we don't want to do 10 seasons. We'll do 8, and we're not going to do 10 episodes a season. The last 2 seasons are just going to be 6. Because again, HBO said, hey, here's money. Do what you want. Have fun. Oh, no. We're going to wrap it up here. This is what I would have done if I was HBO, right? Let's say, here my D Squared channel, right? Right now it's 25 subscribers. A couple of people, watch my videos each day. If I get it into double digits, that's pretty spectacular. But let's say in the future it becomes a channel, and other talent wants to come be a part of this channel, and they start shooting a show, and all of a sudden midway through it, I'm like, hey, this is great, let's keep this up. And they say, nah, we're going to do other stuff. I'm going to look at them, and I'm going to say, okay, here's how this is going to go. You're going to finish this show in the right way and not rush it, or when you're done, I'm just going to bring other writers in here and I'm going to make sure that they shit over everything that you created. So what do you think? Can you stick around for a couple more? That's what I would do. Marcus says, or no, yeah, Jackie, all right, Ghost is one of the best roles. We've been there from the very beginning. Yes, Ghost was there from the very beginning, ever since the Stark children got their dire wolves. So I liked it. I just, if you listen to podcasts or YouTube videos, like, it's like the sun, rises and sets with what happened to Ghost. People didn't like the fact that, Jon wanted Ghost to go with Tormund back up to the north, and so they, really don't think Jon deserves his dire wolf. But, I guess if you're a huge animal lover, which I certainly love dogs, but I guess there's a large section of the population that was really concerned about where was Ghost, when's he going to reunite with Jon, what about Nymeria, so... I get it. I completely get it. And Marcus says, I liked it, but I don't feel like it didn't hurt the rest of the series. I liked it, but I don't feel like it didn't do the rest of the series justice. Seeing how fast they tried and failed at satisfyingly wrap up makes me scared for Star Wars. They could have done so much more. I do agree with, that is one of the complaints, obviously, that I have, is that how can you have this ultra detailed and successful franchise that requires, the story to be handled correctly, has all of these storylines that haven't been resolved yet, all this character progression, and then just speed it up in the last 2 seasons. If I was HBO, I would have found some way to tell the Double Ds, like, look, you can't do this. I will find some way to punish you. Finish this thing, finish it right, and don't speed through it. So I'm with you there. I'm a little worried with the fact that they're going to be writing the Star Wars movies here in a couple of years. Fingers crossed. Hopefully it's like, hey, you're doing 3 movies and they stick with it. Because I don't want to see Star Wars go down in the dumps. Because I don't agree with those people that didn't like The Last Jedi. Like, I'm still loving it. Episode 9 is going to wrap up the Skywalker story. So, wow, think of that. 9 movies are all about the Skywalkers. All this cool stuff I'm hearing about the Emperor and him coming back and Force Ghost Anakin Skywalker has certainly got me excited about the next movie. But again, it's being directed by J.J. Abrams. So it's after this is when we're going to see the writers of Game of Thrones take over Star Wars. Which I get it. I get it. You were handed Star Wars. So you're like, okay, let's just wrap up Game of Thrones. But so many people love the series. It's pretty much the most popular TV series in the history of mankind. So really did a big disservice there to rush this along. But again, I still liked the last season. All right. So Marcus also says, however, I did like the poetic justice of the series. Jon and the Runt reuniting, throne being melted, the Hound dying to fire. That was good. Yes. I thought Clegane Bowl was cool. Like I said in my last stream, I would have liked to have seen a definitive winner, but we got a tie. But it makes sense because at the end of the day, the Mountain, or Sir Clegane, whatever you want to call him, was basically an indestructible monster. So the fact that the Hound did as good as he did against him and was brave enough to go against him really speaks to that character. So the Hound is definitely my second favorite character of the season. Just his demeanor. He was just a really cool character. Yeah, he was grumpy, but sometimes he was the realest one of the bunch. So I enjoyed that tremendously, and I'm glad that they did have a good payoff to his arc, which was of course him taking down or stopping his brother, the Mountain, who for just playing with a toy that he wasn't playing with, burned his brother, the Hound, and So there you go. He got justice there. But yeah, the whole Rush thing, the whole six issue or 6 episodes seasons in comparison to the 10 episode seasons, I can't agree with that. I can't say that the pace was the best. It was certainly a little rushed. But as far as the choices that were made for the ending of some of the characters, I think it's fitting. I just think nowadays, I just don't know if anyone's ever going to be happy with the series finale. I mean, I think other than Star Trek, The Next Generation, I'm probably dating myself here, but it had a 2-part series finale, which is basically a masterclass of how to end series. But other than that, most series that end, especially if they're extremely popular, their endings are never popular. I mean, look at Seinfeld. People hated how Seinfeld ending, Lost, and so there's just no way to win in my eyes when you're ending a series. You're not going to make everybody happy, and that's just the way it is. So I'm going to be realistic about it and say, hey, it was a show I enjoyed. It's the only show on TV that I know of that has dragons in it. So that in itself is going to make it a good show for me. That's something I'm going to appreciate no matter what. So there you go. There you go. All right. Any other topics of discussion? That's pretty much all I have to say about Game of Thrones, although I'm definitely here to react. How did I feel about Jaime and Cersei's death? I feel like it could have been more personalized, Arya or Drogon killing them. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. I thought that was a cop-out. My original theory that Jaime was going to go back to King's Landing and kill Cersei and become Azor Ahai. Instead, he just goes there to comfort her, to be with her at the time of her death. I mean, he didn't go there to be there at the time of the death. He went there to try and get her out of there. Tyrion gave him those directions on how to get out of King's Landing through the crypts, but that didn't work out, so the crypts fell on them and they died. Yeah, no, I'm with you, Marcus, too. Cersei deserved much worse. Absolutely, Cersei deserved to be marched in the middle of King's Landing or marched to the dragon pits and set on fire, or Drogon eating her, or Grey Worm or Daenerys executing her in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, her death was quick, and it shouldn't have been. So I do understand that complaint that Cersei got off way too easy. I absolutely understand that. And I think that's really part of the vitriol that people are having for this series, this season 8, and really the series in general, because I'm not a book reader, but I certainly knew about some of the prophecies. They even talked about some of the prophecies in the show itself, and none of them ever came to fruition. So it's like, why reference those prophecies? The prince that was promised, the Azor Ahai really wasn't mentioned, so I'm not going to worry too much about that one. But it was funny that none of these prophecies that are dealt with in the book, came to fruition here in the TV show. I expected a little bit more than that. I expected a Azor Ahai, but we just didn't get it. And perhaps that's because the Double Ds, the writers of the show, felt they had to wrap this up so they could get to Star Wars, which, hey, is great. I love Star Wars. It's my favorite ever. It's like Star Wars and like X-Men right there. But still, you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face, and I think they did that here. But yeah, we did not get a satisfying death to Cersei. She deserved torture, all sorts of stuff. It was just... But what are you going to do? What are you going to do there? Any other thoughts we have on there? Anyone else want to jump in the chat here before I end the stream? We're coming about 45 minutes, so I still got a little wind in me here, but don't know if I really have that much more to talk about Game of Thrones. I do know that they will be shooting the prequel series here soon, and they haven't given an official release date to that yet, but it does look like sometime next year. So I don't know exactly what they're going to show there, but it will be interesting. There's a lot of history in the Game of Thrones universe that they could go through, whether it be Aegon's conquest. They could go through, the Robert's Rebellion, which is, the events that basically led up to the Game of Thrones. There's a lot that could be done here. The way they ended it, actually, and I haven't heard of any spin-off series that's going to continue this storyline, but boy, I almost wish they would. I'd love to see kind of the continuation of I want to see Bran, be that king. How are they going to deal with his succession since he, they've decided that they're going to be kind of a democracy, although not a full democracy. They completely laugh off Sam's idea of, hey, well, why don't we let everyone have a say? Soon we'll be letting dogs have a say. That was funny. But they did decide though that, the kingship would no longer be passed through someone's lineage or their family tree, that if a king dies, that they would then convene as a council once again and decide. So it would be interesting to see how that goes. I could probably just watch a show with, like, the small council with Bronn on it now. Just, Bronn and, Brienne, Davos, just kind of, and Tyrion sniping at each other. That would probably entertain me. But as far as I know, all their plans for any spin-off series is going to be purely prequel. But there's a lot of cool stuff in the prequels too. I want to see more dragons, so I think that if they go back far enough, we'll get to see some more dragons. So I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, guys, we're kind of, Game of Thrones is done. We'll go through a checklist here. So Game of Thrones is done. Endgame is come and gone. What else? So we've got Spider-Man Homecoming coming up. X-Men The Dark Phoenix is coming next month, I believe. So I can't say I'm excited for that. I will see it. I'm interested in it, but I will never get over the fact that Mystique is a good guy after, 4 movies. It's but nonetheless, I will see it and I will review it for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy that. And then really the crescendo of this year to me, although I don't know if Star Wars Episode 9 will top Endgame, but it could. It's a contender. And so, although I'm not excited for Dark Phoenix, I am interested. I'm not super excited for Spider-Man Far From Home, but I am a little bit excited. Can't wait to see that. But I'm really, really excited for Star Wars Episode 9. And again, it's all thanks to just that simple, Emperor Palpatine cackle at the end of the trailer. I mean, I was always going to see the movie. I'll always go see a Star Wars movie. But just the fact that we're diving back into the Emperor. I've heard rumors about Luke Skywalker maybe even coming back to life. You're at least going to see him in some sort of Force Ghost capacity, and maybe even Anakin Skywalker. This movie, the Episode 9, Rise of the Skywalker, is supposed to pay tribute to not only the original series, but the prequel series, and wrap it all up for us. So I'd like to see them successfully do that. So we're definitely going to be talking about that more and more as we get closer to December and the time of the movie's release. All right, guys. Well, we are set for today. Doesn't look like we're going to get any more questions or comments here. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and play City of Heroes. I may even stream it. We'll see. I have to get it to work first. I just got it downloaded, and it was kind of a convoluted way to get it downloaded, but we'll see how it works. Very excited for the return of City of Heroes. I've never been a big MMO guy, but I was into City of Heroes. Me and my best friend Bill used to play City of Heroes side by side, so it's always going to have Mara Skywalker 2020. Yeah, hey, that would be great actually if they did find a way. Like, no, Luke didn't die. He just kind of took a little forced sabbatical, and hey, he met his wife. There's Mara Jade. And they go on to have movies about Mara Jade. Yeah, I'd be all about that. And Jacqueline's loving that idea as well. So me too. I have a daughter named Mara, so I would love anything to do with that. But anywho, so yeah, still lots of nerdy stuff to look forward to this year. Yeah, that's going to do us for tonight. So thank you everyone that joined the stream tonight, and thank you Marcus and Jacqueline for interacting with me on the chat there. I always like addressing people in the chat there, answering questions, and hope to see more and more people do that. So like I said though, I'm now going to go figure out how this City of Heroes, this new City of Heroes server is doing. It's going to take me forever to create a character, but I'm definitely going to enjoy it. And I may even stream it, so maybe stick around. But until next time, everyone, peace.